Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are on episode 68, and we have a very special guest that you are going to just love. But before we get to her, I have to say hello to Jamie. How is it going, sister?
Hello, good to see you. A very special guest indeed. I love when we have guests, but I love how our guest today is a member of our RFR family, a member of our RFR leadership team. And I'm just so excited to welcome Shae Williams.
Yay. So with that, Shae, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story? What led you to where you're in this spot right here with us today? Connect
Oh,
all those dots.
oh, ladies, it's so. I mean, I've said this so many times before, like, I still can't believe I'm in the room with you ladies. It's incredible. I mean, real food recovery has just been such a blessing and a gift. So I still kind of pinch myself and think, how on earth did I end up here? Wow, how privileged am I? So wow. So I guess I'll start from the very beginning, really, just to share a little bit of my testimonial story, as it were. Um, so yeah, looking back, knowing what I know now, I've got so much compassion for who I am today, but so much compassion on all the parts of me that really were just trying to figure life out, really, at the end of the day. And so I look back, and what I see is someone who really just grew up in a pretty unsettled home, a pretty dysregulated home. We moved around a lot, just country to country to country. So that was at quite a young age. And because I had such a need for certainty and belonging at quite an early age, around about 13, 14, I just ended up in the wrong crowd, really. From there on, I ended up just in a whole bunch of different bad choices. One bad choice after another bad choice, multiple addiction stories just ended up being my norm, just always searching to fill some sort of like ouch, some sort of pain that I just knew was deeply in there. Strangely enough, though, with that, I somehow was someone who ended up getting really good grades. But looking back, one of the first stories as a little girl that my dad, he's one of the sweetest people I know, and he was well-intentioned, but his story to me was, Shae, you'll never get anywhere in this world unless you get straight A's. And so that kind of belief just kind of stuck deeply into me, So there was this drive to just always perform and achieve and, just get better and better and better. I ended up moving abroad to London, the UK at 21, in hope of kind of starting over, thinking, okay, it's all going to be okay and everything. But young girl, 21, a lot of stuff, haven't worked through things, moving to London on your own. Well, yeah, things just went from bad to worse, really. And just, yeah, more drivenness, more spiraling, more disconnect, more search for just healing and belonging and all that sort of thing. So my journey to healing and health really started at probably one of my lowest lows in my life. I ended up in hospital, a really, really low point. But it was also at that point that I returned to faith. So I've got a strong faith, a strong belief in God. And that really was the start of living again, really, I would say. Fast forward a few years, I met and I married my hubby, my amazing hubby. And this journey of just searching for just health and wholeness, something just sparked in me. And I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do sort of nutrition or different things, but I knew that I loved working alongside people and seeing them become their healthiest, most, thriving version. So I kept looking for years and years. And in the midst of all of this, a number of years later, my mom got the news that she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And that was quite a shock to me. I did have the privilege of spending the last number of months with her as, she was passing. But unfortunately, mom came from a background where there was a lot of addiction as well. There was smoking, there was processed food, and that's kind of what I grew up a lot with as a little girl as well. And sadly, unfortunately, she did pass away. But it was at that moment when I look back on all my different addictions, saw her and all of that stuff, something just sparked in me. And I thought, I never want to see anybody else go down this road. I want my mess to become my message. I want to be able to just help as many people see the light, heal, become who they're created to be, really. So a number of years later, I ended up discovering the people that I would end up training as a certified health and life coach, the Health Coach Institute in America. That was a game changer for me. That changed everything. I had to go in and do my own deep inner and outer work, all in the midst of COVID. And we all know how that was. So nothing like a global pandemic and launching your own business to just completely, change your whole world. But what a perfect time as well, because we know so many people were going through so much at that time. So from that, there was a really special thing, being able to launch my health and life coaching practice from there. I then went on to train as a root cause trauma-informed coach too, which dovetails beautifully with the life and health coaching. And for me, really, it was, Paige and Jamie, that I wanted my past life addictions and health problems and issues and disconnect really to be something that helped see others become, healed and whole and that sort of thing. But then I just knew that there was something more. There was something more I was looking for. And my journey to start looking for certifications or training in processed food addiction, I come across this. And I started to look around, like, where could I find training on this? Where could I get involved a lot more in that? And I came across a different community, which I ended up connecting with. And that was the community where I met you two incredible ladies. And I am forever changed and grateful. And that was just really, really special. I would often look for opportunities to sort of hang in the room where Paige was doing group coaching, or being able to connect with Jamie. And I just loved that interaction. And I learned, so much from you ladies in that space. And then lo and behold, I know you'll probably share your part there anyway. Lo and behold, the opportunity to begin working alongside you ladies came along, and I honestly could not have ripped your arms off quick enough. So that's just a little bit of my story of how I came to be here today, and the rest is still being written. So yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I love it. When Paige and I were building the leadership team, I had two names in my head that I knew I wanted. And it was just a no-brainer. And one of the names, Heather, we'd had conversations with, but the other I had in mind was you, because I saw your coaching skill set just shining every time I did a check-in with you, just shining. And I'm like, this is a coach who gets it. She's a skilled coach. She brings a lot to the table. She's super self-aware. And she's super relatable and authentic. And that is why we didn't know if you would be open to working with RFR. And we are so glad that you did.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, and I love how with Heather and Shae, one of the things that we wanted to make sure that our coaches had a spiritual component to their life. And when we say that, we are not trying to shove religion down anybody's throat, but we want all of our leadership team to have that element in their life that they connect to some type of higher power outside of their self, some type of place that they can go when life kicks them in the teeth, as we like to say. Where can you go for a place of comfort that's not another person or food or thing, that you can truly go? And Shae is a wonderful example of that. Yes. Very, very loving. So Shae, I know you start with a holistic approach when working with people. Why do you go that route?
Yeah, I think this is such a great question, Paige. For me, we are, in my belief, a body, soul, and a spirit. and we can't separate one from the other. What happens to us in our emotions, I believe, comes out in body, vice versa, you know. And so when I start to journey with people and to work with people there, I'm working with the whole person. For me, I'm a big believer that everything is connected, that all things matter. And how we do one thing is how we do everything often. So the reason why I start with folk at the beginning of any kind of coaching journey that I work with them on, I start with predominantly the physiological side of things to bring the whole body into a place of regulation, nourished, calm, energized, because if we're going to go a little bit deeper, we're going to need the energy for that. Because often what I've seen in the past is to be able to go deeper, we've got to have the energy. But if we're just not in a healthy physical state or a regulated physical state, folk just don't have the energy to go there. They're just not going to have what's needed to go to those deeper places to ultimately deeply transform, really. So that's where we start predominantly. We do a little bit of deeper diving at the start anyway. But yeah, we start there physically, and then we deeper dive into other areas. Yeah,
it's true, because you really can't, just like any good counselor, a counselor can't work with someone who is an addict who's in their throes of addiction. So just again, you're taking it to the same approach, saying, you know what, I need you to be physically whole, of course, you know, in abstinence from whatever the addictions are, but in addition to that, where's your sleep, where's your food, where's your water intake, even where's your hydration, where's your movement, what's your spiritual life like, is there one or not, you know, which it's and sometimes there's not, and that's the way it goes in recovery. It's what gets most of us into recovery, is a lack of a spiritual practice. So
Jamie, can I say something? That's exactly at Real Food Recovery. That's our approach, right? That we start with those 4 main pillars, our 4 cornerstones of recovery in our program that we developed. Is you start with your food and food prep, then you make sure your sleep is right, then you make sure you've got movement, and then that spiritual component, and then you've got this house, this foundation you've poured for us to start building on other things and diving deeper into the emotional part. So it goes right in line with Real Food Recovery's philosophy as well. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, good point. Shae, how big of an impact do you think food plays when working with your clients?
Oh yeah, for me, it's a huge, huge factor. For me, I love that saying. We've often heard it, like, you are what you eat. But I love that saying, that you are what you don't eat, or you are what you do and don't absorb at the end of the day. And, you know, for me, I love to think of that kind of perspective, that we've got 3 brains: the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain. And there is so much research and evidence and science out there which tells us all about the gut-brain axis, that talks about the food-mood connection, you know, all of that. Food really is, it's program, isn't it? It's information. And for me, it's a massive, massive, massive part, huge part. And we can't really separate it at the end of the day, you know, in my opinion, my humble opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, totally agree. Somebody said in our online recovery, one of our sessions that we have 2 or 3 times a day, that it always starts with food. Everything, it's just about the food. Everything's about the food. And then it just trickles downhill from there. So I could not agree with that.
Absolutely.
And I think I'll add to that really quick, Paige. It is about the food until you find your way out of the food. Yeah. And once you find your way out of the food, then you're free to look at everything else. But when we're in the food, we're not able to look at everything else. And sometimes, and maybe this is just true for me, maybe not, I found that I used the food so I didn't have to look at everything else. If I could keep food as my number one problem, I didn't have to look at anything else. But the minute that food wasn't my number one problem, I had to look at me.
That's so true, because when we're in the food, I talk about this a lot, how it's the frenetic brain. You don't have the capability, even if you wanted
So
to,
true.
the bandwidth isn't there because you are so preoccupied with, oh my gosh, when am I going to eat it? How much am I going to eat? What am I going to do tomorrow to make up for what I eat? Okay, how can I track how many calories that was? Okay, I won't be able to eat tomorrow because I've got to make it. I mean, it's just a constant flurry of continually. And so there's no space to do these other things and have this rich, big, full life. Your life gets very, very small when you're in the food because you're not available. As Jamie has said, you're checked out of life.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I digress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And often, you know, when we look at that, it's formulations we're in. It isn't real food, is it?
That's
It's
right.
not anything that's actually nourishing and actually helping our mitochondria and our microbiome grow and be nourished and, you know, produce and all of that, which then we know, you know, our microbiome is, you know, when it comes to our dopamine and our serotonin and all of that. And, you know, our mitochondria, those little energy cells, they're their own little kind of bodies that need all of that energy. And so, yeah, and then we end up in this like stress response, which just then drives the chronic inflammation up. And it's just this repeating cycle of stress and disconnect and more, yet actually we're not nourishing ourselves and we're not bringing ourselves to a place of health and well-being holistically at all. So, yeah.
Can you imagine the cortisol that is just
Oh,
racing through your blood system at all time? Major stress. You are under constant high-pitched stress. And you talked about the mitochondria. Those are little factories in every single cell in our body. We have these little factories ledgering every bite we take to the good or the bad. And they're probably working overtime trying to put tick marks
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the piece of
Yeah.
paper. So think about how
yeah.
stressed your cells are. Down to a cellular level, you are under extreme stress at all time.
Right. And what does
So,
stress do? Stress ages
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Stress
inflammation. You can't lose
inflames
weight when
us.
you're under
Yeah.
Well, and
that.
it ages us too. It ages us faster. So it makes sense that our lifespans are affected because
Yeah, girl, who wants
we're under
that?
stress.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're under stress.
nobody
Absolutely.
wants to age faster.
Absolutely.
So, how big of an emphasis do you think habits and lifestyle matter with those you work with? And how do you help people make those lasting changes? So, kind of two different questions there. How big of an emphasis do you think lifestyle is, and how do you help people make lasting
Yeah.
change?
Yeah. So at the core of what I do is I'm a habit and behavior change coach. And the foundational paradigm that I coach from is that our beliefs form our identity forms our behavior, and our behavior forms our habits. And often when I have clients or folk come to me, they want to change a habit and they want to have like a quick fix, I'm like, okay, well, we can look at what's happening, but the what is often just the symptom. It's not the root issue. And so that's why back at the start, we'll work with the physiological nourishment of the body and the regulation, but we've got to get down to that core belief that's actually driving the behaviors, that comes out of who we believe ourselves to be. So if we have, for instance, I grew up with the belief that, back to what I said earlier, unless I'm a straight A student, I will never get anywhere in life. As a little girl, I took on that belief. It became a part of who I was. So it showed up in my identity as someone who was driven to get straight A's. And so my behaviors became someone who was driven. I would go to sleep like late at night and get up early in the morning. It's at 11, 12 years old, hardly getting any sleep to get those straight A's. And therefore I formed the habits of a person, because habits are just automated behaviors at the end of the day. So habits, when I look at a person's habits and lifestyle, their behaviors, I know that there's underneath, there's an unconscious belief or belief system that is showing up in who they're presenting themselves to be. And we've got to get to what those unconscious beliefs are that have been wired in. And often, if they're not serving us well and they're not in line with who it is that we're wanting to be, it's often coming out of a space of survival adaptation responses, as that have come from our time with our primary caregivers, What is the kind of inner game, back to, again, that inner and outer game. But for that to happen, that's a gentle, slow process. We've got to go very gently and switch from judgment to curiosity and like, where did that initially first come in? And I often see that those beliefs will generalize. If we're a binge eater in one area, often it'll show up in maybe binge spending, or if we're a restrictor in one area, often we'll restrict in other areas. So it kind of generalizes.
So how do you help the person that just can't get off that binging cycle? That kind of is part of that question of how do you make people make these lasting changes? Because I'm sure you've seen this too, where people start out that first week with a new eating program and they are so gung-ho and they're like, wow, I lost 2 or 3 pounds, which is all water. And they're just on fire. And by the second week, things, the new is starting to wear off. And by week 3, they're like, I can't figure out how to get back on track. I mean, it's just so hard for people, whether it's exercise or food or playing the piano, whatever it is, getting people to stay consistent. Do you have like a number 1 tip to help people stick with change?
Yeah. So for me, it's looking at deep, lasting, transformational change, and there's no quick fix to that.
Oh.
I often say that actually for, what's taken sometimes decades to form in terms of habits is going to take a bit of a process. But if we were going to start somewhere, we've got to start with actually what's an empowering thing. Like, what is your why? If I have folk coming to me and they come with what they don't want, we need to switch. I will often switch to an empowering, what actually sparks an excitement and an empowering why in you. Because I'm a big believer that we take action based on emotion, or we don't take action based on emotion. If you really enjoy something, you're gonna do it.
That's
if
right.
someone wants to run at 5 a.m. in the morning and you just hate this, what's going to happen if that alarm clock goes off? Well, I'll certainly throw the thing across the room because I'm not a 5 a.m. runner, but we've got to work with, we got to break things down smallly, but we've got to access like from a place of empowerment and then begin to gently work together. But one thing that I will say is vital is accountability, working with someone, working with the right system, the right support, and the right accountability. That is vital. For me, it's a game changer when you've got someone you're journeying with.
Actually, I'll just put a quick plug in there before I turn it over to Jamie, but we were having a conversation with someone who is an expert in this field just yesterday, and we talked about, what helps people make lasting change. The word support, they need support because people can't do it on their own. If they can, they would, right? And even if they do know what to do, when the chips are down and you're having a bad moment and you've got a choice to go back to the old habit or work on the new habit, you need someone to mirror back to you, maybe your why. You need someone to help you think 10 steps down the road. You need someone to help you think out of that moment to get you through that critical, it might be a 20-minute period, but when you're in the depths of craving, we lose access to that frontal lobe, the blood flow there, which holds our logic center. And we need a substitute for our frontal lobe, in other words, and that comes in the form of support.
That's right.
And what I'll say as well, when changes happen, we've got this beautiful, incredible nervous system, don't we, that loves to keep us safe. It's got a great job. It's to keep us away from danger, away from familiarity, and moving towards comfort, pleasure, familiarity, what's known. And this is the challenge when it does come to anything change. To that part of us, anything unfamiliar, even if it's better for us, it flags as danger. And so just knowing that actually I'm working with a part of me that when new happens, when deep transformational changes are starting to happen, that part of me is going to show up and go, what on earth is this person doing to me? Danger, danger, alert, alert. It's going to want to move us back to familiar patterns, familiar old ways, even if they are not serving us well, because we kind of stayed alive there. We stayed in familiarity. So just knowing that we're working with a part of us, that just because it's unfamiliar doesn't mean it's wrong. And being able to move past self-sabotage moments and stuff, being able to move through that with that support, that person that can hold that vision for you, that why, and remind you of the why compassionately as a cheerleader is vital, vital, vital. So yeah.
Yes, agreed.
And we're working against a society that I think it's Dr. Goldhammer that says that makes us fat, sick, and depressed, miserable, fat, sick, and miserable. I don't,
Yeah,
it's not, fat, sick, and miserable. So we're also fighting society that with the exposure everywhere around us.
absolutely.
Mm.
So, Shae, you've talked a little bit about it, but can you expand on what do you think is more important to work on for someone who wants to change, their actions or their thoughts?
Yeah, again, great question. So if we come back to what I shared a little earlier, that our beliefs form our identity forms our behavior forms our habits, and that the actions are springing out of something. It's the inner game and the outer game, isn't it? And so we can look at the actions. In my opinion, the actions are simply the symptoms. They're simply the behaviors. They're simply what's coming up out of something else driving. And so we can, in the early stages when I journey with folk, we do look at the actions, but actually we've got to get to the root cause. Unless we get to the root cause, effectively, all we're doing is putting a plaster on this thing or making changes that will just be tweaks. But if we want change, we've got to change. If we do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always got. So we've really got to, in my opinion, and my belief from what I've seen, get to the why. What is driving that thought? That thought. What is rooted? What's the meaning attached to that that's coming out in a certain behavior, habit, etc. So yeah, I hope that answers that question.
And don't
Yeah.
you think our actions can drag our emotions as well? That our emotions can catch up. If we just start acting in a certain way, those emotions will catch up to our behaviors.
That's been my
Yeah,
experience.
absolutely. Another belief I hold to is that our beliefs confirm our experiences and our experiences confirm our beliefs. And so we end up in this cycle of almost reinforcing. So if I believe that the world is out to get me, everything I experience is going to just confirm that belief and reconfirm.
Yes.
And so again, what's beautiful then is to have accountability or people to walk alongside that can help pattern interrupt that thinking or that behavior. We've got to interrupt it somewhere, not tweak it and change the shape of the pattern, completely pattern interrupt it, yeah.
That's so true. You can always find what you're looking for, right? Negative or positive.
That's
You
right.
can always collect data. It's glaring.
Yeah.
You can become expert in that.
And it's freely available. It's freely available.
Yes.
It's freely available.
What do you think are our core human needs?
Yeah, I love this. This, for me, was an absolute game changer just in my own personal life. And then as I started to journey and coach other people. So for me, what I see as our core human needs, I see that we've got 6. I'm sure there's loads of others, or they might come under different names. But for me, our 6 core human needs are love, safety, belonging, or love, safety, belonging, purpose or contribution, as some would say, certainty, and freedom. And those, when I realized that that's actually largely what is going on, when I feel like off or there's conflict or a sense of something just feeling not right, I can often to always trek down to one, some, or all of those of feeling a sense of threat or a sense of loss. And that, when you pair that with your own personal values and you start to look at, this might be what's going on, especially when I work with my clients and I start to say to them, have you considered, we'll look at your core human needs, and after we've done their personal values sessions, and they start to see, it's not that there's something wrong with me. I'm not broken or need fixing. It's that my core human needs and these beautiful values that are who I'm made up of are feeling either undernourished or under threat or like lacking in attention or anything like that. It changes so much because you begin to see through the lens and the eye of, oh gosh, actually compassion. It's not, I'm not doing something wrong, as it were,
Exactly.
generally, you know. Yeah, I don't know
Exactly.
how that lands for you ladies. I mean, I can see, Jamie, that made a biggie for
Yes,
you.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it was also a very healing realization for me that I'm not broken. I'm living my life outside of my values.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable because I'm living in cognitive dissonance. I'm living in incongruency. And
Mhm.
of course, my inner family is like, what is going on? And when you're walking outside, living out life, trying to, uh, you're literally in this incongruence, it becomes a place of constant stress, constant inner conflict, constant questioning, constant lack of certainty, lack
Yeah.
of freedom, because you're always trying to course correct and keep all the plates spinning.
Yeah.
And it really is, it's not sustainable. And that's, I think, why so many of us, myself included, turn to food because or any addictive substance because we are living outside of our values. We don't know it. We don't even know what our values are or who we are. And so we just turn to numbing ourselves, numbing the pain, this low level, constant pain that we walk around with.
Yeah.
And a lot of it for me came from all of that plus a lack of trust in a higher power or trust in a God greater than me. Because I didn't consciously realize I was doing it, but I was walking around trying to control life and other people like I was God,
Yeah.
so that I would be okay. If I could control life and people around me and they would do what I wanted them to do, I'd be okay. So
Yeah.
I was playing God, and then I would, stomp my foot like a 5-year-old when it wasn't working, or I would
Yeah.
walk around just, getting ego bruised all the time because I was trying to edge God out, right? And
Mhm.
so once I realized that I needed to um step back and let God have his rightful place,
Yeah.
and humble myself and ask for guidance, and then really focus on what was going on inside of me,
Mhm.
which is my inner family and their needs, meeting their needs. That was a game changer. I'll never forget the day that I had this woman. She's an author. Her first name is Erica, and I don't remember her last name. She really was a game changer for me back in 2016, and I had
Mhm.
just done this work 2017. I just started doing this inner work. And I was in a physical recovery for a few years by then, but I was not emotionally or psychologically recovered at all. And I found this woman. She was a really author, speaker, podcaster, and she had this list of like the self-care. It was a very long list. It was like 20 items. And one of the first ones was, when I'm upset or offended, I will care for my own feelings. And I was just like,
What?
what?
Yeah.
What? Wait, what? Like, you mean somebody else isn't supposed to make me feel better? Like, how does that work? She can't be right.
Mhm.
But I knew she was. But it was honestly, it was such a paradigm shift that I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. I'm not supposed to put my feelings on someone else and hope they make me feel better. What? How exhausting it is to live like that. It was
Yeah.
exhausting.
Absolutely. And that is totally the word, exhausting. And I just think how different the world would be if we actually taught people, taught kids, taught
Children.
humanity
Yeah.
about this stuff, about our core human needs, about our personal values, instead of just hurry, 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 distraction, distraction. When we finally connect to, I mean, as a person of faith, as a believer in God, I'm like, well, this is God's idea. He created me like this. So of course, he makes good things in my belief, and so if this is his idea and he's made me like this, of course, being able to honor those, and I see that now with my kids as I, try and spend time teaching them about their values and appreciating others and getting onto others' world maps and understanding, it really does make a huge difference. And
Right.
yeah, it's simple, but yeah, it's putting it into action.
That's right.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, and for our listeners and viewers, You mentioned at the top of the hour about trauma-informed coaching that you do. Tell us a little bit about what that is, why you incorporated it, why it sort of came out of a sort of a natural evolution
Mm.
of your coaching.
Yeah, beautiful. So through my training that I did with the Health Coach Institute, we did tap into like NLP, that kind of thing as well.
Yes.
But
NLP, what is that for our listeners?
Yes, so neuro-linguistic programming. I love everything neuroscience and brain rewiring and all that kind of stuff, the technical word for it. But for me, when I landed upon the root cause trauma-informed space, I love all kinds therapy and all that sort of stuff, and I've done that myself for many years, found it helpful. But I know that this root cause trauma-informed space has really taken off quite a lot in a number of years. So when I landed on this and I started to do some of my own personal work in this, and I started to understand, it's not just a top-down approach, but a bottom-up and top-down approach. So working with the cognitive, but also working with the body. And I started to see the difference that it made in my life. I thought, this is actually one of the missing links for me. And so where I work from in that space, it's the top down, bottom up. But when I say bottom up, it's working with our nervous system, the vagus nerve, our nervous system regulation, everything that's wired into this incredible body. So we can, logically, we're not dealing with a logic system when it comes to things wired into us. It's things wired into our actual physical body that come from way back when, survival adaptation strategies, all these sort of things, being able to strengthen and grow our body's capacity to know that actually the danger is over, and so for me, when I trained in that and began to bring that in, complementing again back to, as I said at the start, the physiological side, the emotional side, the mental side, spiritual side, all of those different things, I was able to approach and am still able to approach from a far greater holistic space. And I love that saying. I think it's Bessel van der Kolk, where he talks, it might be him, I might be getting that wrong, but when we can't find the words, the body will speak. And so Gabor Maté, Bessel van der Kolk, a lot of these incredible names out there do a lot when it comes to this sort of training and the research and all of, that work into that. So for me, that has been incredible to see and to shift what's wired into our very nervous systems, what's wired into our very body, bottom up, as it were. So I mean, I could go on for hours about that, but we don't have hours. So
what's interesting that you brought up the vagus nerve, our podcast that was just released, not even 12 hours ago, 9 hours ago, is on today. You've got a lot of nerve on our podcast at Real Recovery, specifically the vagus nerve. So an irony there.
Yes.
That's been great. So we have a few listener questions, if you wouldn't mind answering for us, Shae. The first one is, I often feel overwhelmed when I get up in the morning and I don't even know where to start. It may come easy to some, but I really struggle with what to do.
Yeah. Gosh, so overwhelm. The overwhelmed sneaky story is that everything has to be done right here, right now, instantly and perfectly. I mean, how stressful and how exhausting is that? For me, being able to dispel the story and the shouting of overwhelm is key. And we're big believers, I know we're all big believers here on that the brain loves a plan. Our brain loves a plan because that helps it stay empowered. It helps it stay in control. And for me, what's really important is to anticipate and plan. It's thinking about what is it that I actually want to be feeling and seeing and hearing and knowing at the end of the day, but then picking no more than 1, 2, 3 maximum doable and achievable things to do that day, and I often share with clients that there's an analogy that I use, like the glass balls versus the rubber balls analogy. If we drop rubber balls, they'll bounce, so that's okay. But if we drop glass balls, they'll shatter, and so let's just break things down. Let's pick 1, 2, or 3 things that are in alignment, and then let's plan those in. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Love it. Love it. The next question that I had, I want to make sure that I think Shae, I'd love to hear your take on this. I feel so angry towards my partner. This is a viewer question. I feel so angry towards my partner. They're really getting on my nerves lately. Is that my problem? Is there something wrong with me, or are they just annoying? Sounds like a very frustrated partner.
Yeah. Oh, haven't we all been there? And maybe I've been that partner who they're frustrated with
I'm
me.
sure I've been that partner at sometimes too.
Sorry, husband, I do love you. Yeah. So, jokes aside, I think we all know that story of the toothpaste when relationships break down because they didn't put the lid of the toothpaste on. But at the end of the day, it's never about the lid of the toothpaste, is it? That is just the end result of built up, years or months or whatever it is of frustrations and emotions. And for me, it's not that's a symptom, that's not the root issue. And for me, emotions are vital. Emotions are just indicators. They're not who we are. They're messengers. They're indicators to something is needing to be heard. Something is needing to be nourished. Something is needing to be expressed. And, being able to check in with ourselves and go, I'm feeling mad or sad or whatever. What is actually going on here? What is in my heart that is feeling, sad? And often if anger or those big kind of feels come up, we can think that that's the issue, but often underneath it'll be a sadness or something. And when we think back to our core human needs and our own personal values, often again, those emotions will be trying to tell us, I believe, that one, some, or all of those, or a large amount of those are feeling undernourished or uncared for, parts that just are sad and need to be expressed, so let's befriend our emotions. Let's listen to them. They're showing up as allies. They do have a positive intention, I believe, but often we just want to shove them away.
They are,
So,
as Paige and I refer to them, they are our dashboard lights. And just like when we're driving and a dashboard light comes on, we pay attention.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we pay attention to those emotions when they come up, because there's no one else that can heal them or address them or really examine them. There's no one else to do that but us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Okay, the next one is I plan on coming straight home from work every day, but end up finding myself in the drive-through instead. How do I get out of this cycle?
Yeah, so I see this quite a bit with folk that I do end up having the privilege of coaching. And I think what I would say here is the solution's in the problem. The solution is always in the problem. And there's a key word there, the cycle. What I would say is pattern interruption. Pattern interruption. Let's plan ahead. Tweaks again. Tweaks don't create change. Change brings change. So for instance, if we're ending up on that same route, well, let's plan a completely different route. But again, if we are on our own and we're isolated, it's easy to end up at the drive-through because no one will know. So again, back to the right system, the right support, and the right accountability. Someone who will hold the vision that you have got for your life. If you don't feel you've got it, someone that will hold you, that accountability, and help you take the next right step, So yeah, pattern interruption. It doesn't happen overnight, but we've got to start. We've got to move and start as we mean to go on. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. It's interesting. I every Saturday morning I would go to a meeting when I lived in Houston, and I would drive the same route to this meeting, and the route happened to pass all of these fast food and other dens of processed junk. And I was never thinking about it or tempted, but it would annoy me because I would be in the right lane, getting ready to turn past the restaurants, past the junk places, and I would get all kinds of traffic ahead of me because everyone was stopping and turning into these places. And it would be like a traffic jam in the right lane while everyone, right turned into their processed food hit. And I would be like, oh my gosh, when am I going to learn? Like, get into a left lane, avoid all these people seeking their hits, and get down the road to your meeting. but it
Mhm.
would really frustrate me. And I'm like, Jamie, I know what's going to happen every Saturday morning. These people are in their habits, their mode
Mhm.
of they're going to go and get their hit from the drug dens, and I'm trying to get to my recovery meeting.
Mhm.
If I want to have recovery, I need to get in the left lane
Yeah,
and pass
Yeah.
all of these other people that are veering right.
Yeah.
you
So
needed pattern interruption.
exactly, I did. I needed a pattern interruption. It's like get out of the right lane, get left,
Yeah.
get past all those people going for their drugs, and then get back right. And that's what I started to do. And it was a lot calmer by the time I got to my recovery meeting. It was
There
a
we
lot
go.
calmer. So Shae, thank you so much for your time today, your
Mm.
wisdom. Thank you for being a partner to us. We are out of time, but I am so grateful for everything that you shared. So grateful that you work with us and that I get to learn from you. There is not a week that goes by pretty much that I don't ask Shae some kind of question and clarification about what we learned, what she's teaching, how she shares her perspective and her coaching skills. For those of you who might be interested in trauma-informed coaching work with Shae, or any kind of behavior change coaching work with Shae, she is available to coach. You can find her information, her bio, and her availability on Real Food Recovery on our website. And it's realfoodrecoveryforyou.com. And that's the number 4 and the letter U. So Shae can be found there. And also she can be found hosting our community, all of our community connections. There's a few days a week that she comes in and works with us, and works with our members in what are the mornings in the US here. And we love it. Our members love her. And we are so grateful that you're part of this team.
Thank you,
Thanks,
ladies. It's
guys.
been-
Thanks, Shae. Yeah, I always learn something from you, and I try to listen in when you're coaching because I'm like, oh, wow, she is so smart. So I always learn something every time. So
So
thank
true.
you for all you do.
Thank you,
Thanks,
ladies.
guys. We'll see you next time at Real Food Recovery.
Take care.